Hello and welcome everybody to our product talk about value-based leadership development. And together with Dr. Gonzalez and Magister Meister Steyer from Regional Media Austria, we are very excited here to invite you how value-based leadership development creates a positive interaction during a change process. Dr. Gonzalez is the head of human resources of Regional Media. Magister Meister Steyer is the project manager for Leadbecker in human resources development at Regional Media Austria. My name is Norbert Hölzl, and I'm the CEO of Leadbecker, and I may warmly welcome you to this product talk. What are the objectives of value-based leadership development? So it all starts with the required alignment of leadership behavior in all levels to a corporate mission. So you really want to make sure that your mission statement and your value compass is being deployed in really every cell of your organization. And this is already the next point here. So while making sure these behavioral guidelines and the value compass is being embedded in every cell of the organization, you can also be sure, or actually more confident, that the organization is feeling more resilient for any kind of change or even crisis. So what also helps then finally is to measure the cultural maturity of the organization, of the corporate value, and that can also be then added on with the employee net promoter score. So in a nutshell, these top three objectives help your people, help your key workforce to provide an individual safe zone on how to act in volatile times. Yeah. And we all feel it. There's definitely a range of volatility out there that we need to face on a daily level. Yeah. Some is passive, some is actively seeked and looked for organizational designers, but some of these volatilities also come in and we are here passively receiving them. So we have set up here a modular 360 leadership journey, which is built on individualized and also collective elements. And this is an example now that goes over a span of 6 months. It has proven for us that 6 months is a good time of impact. And as I said, it starts with individual and collective elements depending on the needs of the organization. So for example, starting in the first quarter with the 360 feedback period, where managers on all levels get individual feedbacks as a PDF as well as an abstract from the system. And who is invited here is like all stakeholders of managers, like peers, superiors, but also subordinates. And this can be configured, of course, who will participate in this 360. Then after that, we don't leave managers alone. We help them in a structured check-in with a coach. It can be either an internal coach or an external coach. We also deploy coaches here in our network. And this is like a reflective meeting, helping the manager to understand this new transparency about his or her behavior, yeah, and whether these value compass and leadership principles are being deployed in his or her team or not. So a result of that is an individual development plan, which then can also be discussed with the respective supervisor. Finally, there's also then a range of activities that can be deployed depending on the needs of the organization. For example, peer exchange, individual coaching, team coaching, and also blended learning, and also town hall meeting, depending on how deep also the board or the CEO is involved in this process. And this is one of the learnings that you will see at the end. It makes sense that a board member is also back in this process. So what are the preparative steps for value-based leadership development? It's basically a 3-step homework. And yes, it's a homework. It's something that we need to prepare, or organizations need to prepare upfront or as we get going. So be clear on the values. And the value system is basically a direct offspring from the mission statement. Yeah. Mostly it's like on the homepage, on the web page, in some, let's say, design drawers, but it's not really being put to practice. So from these values, you need to deduct leadership principles. Again, they're rooted in the values as well. And then based on that, you define how you wish your key workforce should behave in the daily business. And these observable behaviors, how we call it, is basically then constituting the checkpoints for the 360. So with this having said, I would like to pass on to Dr. Gonzalez already, because that's basically all you need as a trigger. And then Dr. Gonzalez now takes over and invites us to how this approach was being implemented at Regional Media Austria.
So if we kind of pull on one corner, we know that it has an effect on the other corner. And in at least 2 of these corners, we were able to use Leadbecker as a supportive tool during the implementation. In the strategy development, we used surveys and pulses to kind of support the strategic transformation. We kind of merged from, like, we had a variety of brands in our company and merged them all into one unique and universal brand for our company. That was kind of a process that was very hard for some of our employees and also leaders, because they felt like they have given up some of their corporate identity by merging under one kind of brand roof. And that's something that we where Leadbecker as a tool, the Leadbecker surveys, helped us to kind of listen to our employees and feel what their issues and what their needs are, and also measure whether they're on track on the transformation route. And the second, maybe Norbert, you can step one back in the leadership corner. We also used team pulses, but especially the 360-degree feedback that we aligned to our leadership principles, and also kind of tried to give our leaders individual feedback on how they kind of perform and on which personal development path they are with respect to our leadership principles.
So the lessons learned quite a lot. It is very important to have a transparent timeline and roles for all stakeholders, and an intense communication of the why and how for both to feedbackers and managers is important. Why are we doing this? Why is it so important for the manager himself or herself? And why is it so important for the company? And this has to be clear, must be clear for all of the people. Yes. Good. And after that, you have to show also how to give feedback. You have to give explanations to the feedback scale and how to give comments in written. And a very important issue is to secure the feedbackers that the feedbacks are anonymous. Good. And then the last part here, special for the managers. As I said before, that the access of the results is only possible for the managers. So no other person has access to the data, neither the HR department nor the management board or somebody else. And the manager decides which topic or issue he would like to share with his own manager or with his employees. This is an individual decision. Yes, and to give the manager the opportunity to reflect her or his results with somebody else, it's very important to have the reflective check-ins with the Leadbecker coaches. This was very important to us. This is an investment, yes, but it was necessary, and we would like to do it next time as well, the same way. Yes.
We don't want to leave the managers alone with just the numbers and just like a piece of paper and some like turquoise and pink lines, but we want them to have somebody neutral to kind of read the results, and also kind of in this check-in also give them some like the positive approach, yeah? and put the positive aspects in front and forward. Yeah.
The first question is for Judith. Did you compare Leadbaker with another tool, and what are one or two elements where you found Leadbaker special in comparison to all other tools?
We did compare it with one or two tools when we started looking at what are survey tools, like simple survey tools, because there are a lot kind of on the market. And what we found out, what the specialty with Leadbaker is that it's that the individual Leadbaker, the person that wants to get her or his individual feedback, has kind of its system where he or she can look at and sees her results, and at the same time we as HR can also launch surveys. So we can kind of use a variety of tools within the system, because I have surveys that I can launch as HR, where I only have kind of the question to the employees. We listen to the employees, but I can also use it for a 360 degree, where I have kind of my own perception compared with the social perception, and I see my hidden talents and my blind spots. And then it's also a tool where each leader can kind of launch short pulse surveys that he or she can use at her own need. So and I have it all in a system, and
it's easy to handle.
It's also easy to use and easy to handle. We can manage, we can steer, we can put like templates in there. Yeah, we've also learned a lot about templates and about how much information is helpful and necessary in the tool. Yeah, but that would maybe that kind of goes farther than your question.
So it's interesting that you say what you said is actually it's a multitasking capability, that you can do multiple tasks simultaneously without affecting one running survey, so to say, and you give autonomy for the users, right?
Yeah.
Can you say that?
Yeah, but I would also, as an insight now, put there that it's maybe best to start with one of the options I have. Either start with the survey or start with the 360, and don't launch everything at the same time, because every tool that is new always needs a lot of communication and support to be really introduced and effective in an organization. At least our employees, they're always a little bit skeptical when there is a new tool that's introduced. I mean, we introduced it before the pandemic and before everything went very, very digital. But in general, I think tools need to be very well communicated within an organization.
Great. We have a new question in chat. The question is, how did the Leadbakers accept the fact that the results are only visible for the managers? This is the first part.
Yeah, I think there might be a misunderstanding, because we're using so many different words. There's two roles in the Leadbaker system. The Leadbaker, that's the person, that's a manager, that's like that's a manager, a leader. The Leadbaker is somebody who can kind of ask for feedback, who kind of invites to give feedback, who starts the 360 degree questionnaire according to a template. And the feedbackers are the whatever role they have in a company, but they're invited to give feedback. So what was not the case, that if I'm a Leadbaker, I decide whom I share my results of the 360 with. My manager, my boss doesn't see the results. I decide what I share with him. If I kind of share the whole PDF, or if I only tell him, look, these are the 3-4 main topics that I kind of took out from my 360 and the check-in with the Leadbecker coach. So maybe this question, maybe we were not clear with the words here, and but I have to say that this is also something where the top management had to let loose or let go, because they of course they would have liked to see the results, but we said, nah, it's so personal. It has to be the decision of the Leadbecker, the person that invites for feedback, to be able to make the decision who I share the results with.
There are different practices with different clients. For instance, here in Slovenia, we have several clients who are using 360 as an entering point to one-on-one discussion, to one-on-one development review. And in that case, of course, also results are shared with the manager. And the last step there is that manager and employee decides which part of the results will be shared with key users that are mainly from HR.
Mm-hmm.
The second part of the question is whether you notice a lot of resistance when implementing the tool, and if yes, how did you deal with it?
Mm-hmm. I think, as I mentioned before, in general, there's like skepticism. Why do we need a tool for that? Because we have our like appraisal talks, and we talk. We sit at the table and we talk, or we kind of talk virtually. But as you mentioned, Maya, we see the 360 as an additional input for the personal development talk, and the two main issues that I kind of, or two takeaways is you need to really explain what's in it for me to the users. What's in it for me as a Leadbecker, and as a manager. What's kind of the benefit for me to use this tool, but also for the feedbackers. That's also something we noticed. I mean, people or colleagues are only going to give you feedback if they kind of see a change, or they see that it's that the results are used for something. And the second main point was that the point about the anonymity. Is the data really anonymous, both in service but also in 360 degrees? Who can really see the results? Because they always assumed that Marlene and I, as in the admin role, we can kind of see every detail of any survey, and we cannot. We actually you can filter results in service, but we actually reduce the possibilities to filter to a minimum.
Mm.
So maybe I may add to that notion. First of all, yeah, so the individual results can never be shared, can never be looked at actually, but the individual actually decides with whom he or she wants to share the data. So it's like an individual data backpack, like a rucksack, right? And you decide with whom you share what you have in your rucksack. Yeah. And the second part, what is in for me as a feedbacker? That is really important to come up actually with a learning cycle. Yeah, feedback and learning goes hand in hand. And if you don't learn as an organization from the feedback that you get, this exercise is not making sense. So feedback and learning goes hand in hand, and we need to demonstrate our people, our employees, that we're learning from that feedback, that we're going into an improvement cycle. And that's the best present you can give to any feedback.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. We have additional question for you, Judith. The question is, what were one or two benefits that were meaningful for leaders, for key workforce, and for feedbackers? So it means for all the employees.
I would point out one for Leadbackers. I think with the 360, what's always interesting is kind of the social view. You know, how do I see myself, and how does my team, my colleagues, how do they see me? And I think the deviation is always the kind of the biggest benefit when you do it the first time, but also when you do it the second time. And we showed that there is a scale. You give feedback on a scale, but most important or very important are also the comments. You can comment and put in some text feedback, and we've done this already twice now, the 360 degree, and our learning from the first round was that we really emphasize and communicate well, that the feedbackers are very well invited also not only to put their feedback on the scale, but also add their personal comments, because this is actually, and we actually have always 2 open questions at the end of the feedback. What do you think the leader should kind of strengthen and even do more and keep doing? And I think this is kind of, you know, what was really what's really meaningful for the leaders. For the feedbackers, I think it's the possibility to kind of give anonymous feedback, to kind of to dare to speak out and to mention something that I maybe not dare to mention personally, not because my manager is so mean or aggressive or loud, but sometimes it just takes more to speak things out than to note them down. And we've kind of always established or given it as a recommendation. You as a Leadbacker, take the 1 or 2 key results that you got through the 360. Might it be a development issue? Might it be just something that surprised you or that you didn't understand, and kind of lay it out in your team meeting and play it back and talk about it. And it's always just a door opener or for a meaningful dialogue and conversation.
Thank you, Judith. One question that appeared a lot of times with my clients is, what is the best practice to evolve and define leadership principles? Because the topic of today's webinar is how to connect values with leadership behaviors and principles.
Well, I want to just bring out those card set again, because this is just a result of a very long process. It took us 6 months to really develop those principles, and we developed them in a broader management team. And it was kind of really, really hard work to kind of come to the principles, the headlines, but then even more to kind of work together on, okay, what does it mean? How do I really feel and see if I apply this leadership principle correctly? So I think it takes time, and it's ideally you take your time, and ideally you involve not everybody, but a large group of people, especially that group that also then has to go ahead and lead by example. And we kept the process quite transparent and open, and told employees we're working on those principles.
Yeah, I may add to that. You just said it's super to really embrace like representative sets of your employees, from like the front line to the executive board. And when I read that, actually, while you developed those principles and those behaviors, I really got goosebumps, because it's very emotional, very touching, and very beautiful, because I also feel like attached to it. And so you can see that you guys put your heart into that. And that's, I think, very important for your people as well to feel that. So which brings me, maybe, I don't know about the timing now. We see a couple of people are still around and the discussion is going on. But my question would be then, also in this context of developing these leadership principles, is what is your recommended level of buy-in from the executive board, from the CEO and so on? You know, how did you like mobilize those guys?
Well, we have two managers on the executive level, and they were the ones to start. We kind of convinced them that we started with the 360 out of the Leadbecker range. We convinced them that it's. I mean, we didn't really take that much to convince them that the 360 is useful, but they started. They were the first ones. To launch it and to ask for feedback, to invite for feedback. Yeah.
So they really acted as role models up there on the top.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's actually really a beautiful example, almost like in the textbook. I couldn't have seen any deviations from that. So maybe a closing question to you, Judith, and maybe also Marlene, is how do you now feel about that? Is there a level of satisfaction, of pride, but also mixed with tons of to-dos and improvements for the future? How do you feel about it?
I think we can, after the process is before the process. We know we've done it now twice, but we know that we still need to give guidance. But of course, we're kind of happy that we've kind of developed those principles, and that Leadbecker can kind of help the individual leaders to kind of go and work towards and develop towards those principles.
Beautiful. Thank you very much for this. Let's call it a closing statement. Just look at the comments. Maya, any more inputs? Otherwise,
no.
Right on. I want to invite everybody to revisit this webinar. We do send you a recording. You will also get an abstract of the charts that we provided you, and look forward then to any kind of ongoing questions that you have. I'm personally very grateful, Judith and Marlene, for your sharing your experience and bringing this forward. Look forward to keep observing and watching how well you can evolve and develop your organization. Thank you for that.